Hey there. So, my next guest, founder and CEO of his own esports team, and he really dives in to what it's like running an organization, the challenges an organization like this faces, especially since they're only about a year and 7 months old, and kind of how the things that he didn't think would be challenges that turned out to be challenges. I really like this one. I know you're all going to love it too. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Gamerpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bradford Carlton. Today, I have a very special guest with us. I have Matthew O'Toole. Hey there, Matthew. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
What would you prefer me to call you? You Mac?
Yeah, I typically go by Mac.
Mac works. Okay. And that's because it's MacSauceOP, right?
Yes, that is the handle.
All right. I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself? Where do you hail from?
I am from Boston, Massachusetts. Originally, now I'm in Central Mass, but born and raised Massachusetts.
So you get to experience the ice storm of the century at the moment.
Oh, yes. The wonderful joys of snow with all of my West Coast friends telling me, oh, wow, it's so nice. You must love the snow so much. And it's like, come over here and shovel one time and then tell me about how nice it is.
I lived in Ohio for 9 years. I don't have to shovel anything ever again if I can help it. All right. So, Mac, I like getting the show started just right into it. So why don't you begin by just telling us a little bit about yourself, please?
So I am currently 28. Originally getting involved in gaming when I was about 13, 14, back in the PlayStation 2 era, even all the way back on, an old garbage, like Windows 98 computer, just playing like the original games where there was no online, all the way up to the point where I kind of shifted into esports through originally Halo 2 and like the golden age of early esports. Ended up moving on to Halo 3, competing at MLG events as a player, a coach, and a manager. Ended up doing a bit of World of Warcraft 3v3 and 5v5, a bit of Gears of War and Rainbow Six Vegas. Ultimately, that was until I was about 17, 18, 19. So that was about 10 years ago. And at that point, there wasn't really any careers. Like there was like pro, very, very top level, and then nothing. Like you weren't even going and participating. Like you were paying money to compete out of an open bracket at a live event. There was no prize earning. So it was like, this isn't really anything to even consider as a career path. So went into the typical job world. I've done a ton of different stuff, from, like hard labor stuff to office work to, for the last number of years, doing recruiting and talent acquisition. And then ultimately in 2018, kind of not really having much time, got introduced to mobile games, specifically FIFA Mobile at the time, which I'm a huge football for all the American soccer fan. So that was just like a quick thing. I could just, play on my phone as I was going around, didn't need to stop and dedicate time to it. And then from there kind of got sucked back into gaming and ultimately realized that not only that gaming was on such an uptake at that point, but also that mobile was at a point where it was a legitimized platform and had a lot of opportunities. So at the end of 2018, Brawl Stars was globally launched by Supercell. Ended up in some communities, in my spare time, working, running events and doing things like that. We ultimately ended up speaking with and merging with a pretty significant mobile organization at the time. They were called Omen Elite. Ended up becoming a director of their Brawl Stars program there. Ran it to the point where we had a pro team go to DreamHack's Dallas in 2019, nearly qualified for their World Finals, which was in Busan, South Korea, but barely didn't. So built a pretty significant program, ended up not really having our goals and ideas align. And so a number of the staff in the community, as well as myself, decided that it was time to shift and split ways. And ultimately, as a group, we decided to start our own organization. So on August 10th, 2019, we started Aphelion Esports. And since then, I've been founder and CEO running our own organization. So that's about a year and 7 months now. On top of, I've been involved in a number of community projects and other positions around mostly the mobile community, but I mean, there's overlap in everything. And since then, have just been focusing on building a career path for myself through our organization, and also opening opportunities and connecting with people around the industry. And though in a lot of industries, COVID has taken, a major toll on them, and even still in gaming, it has, with lack of the ability to play live events and whatnot. The fact is, we can still do things just like this. We can't meet in an office and face to face, but we can do a call, and you can still run teams, play events. So it became something through lockdown that definitely became a higher focus than even before COVID, because the opportunity to build and use the unfortunate situation of the pandemic to keep people connected and keep things moving was something that we felt very strongly about.
Very cool. All right. That's a lot to talk about here. Before we do that, though, I start every interview with a single question. So I'm going to ask you, just like I ask everybody else, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how weird are you, Mac?
I'm not sure. I'm sure plenty of other people would say in the mobile realm, it would be sus levels. I would say it depends on the day. I can definitely be rather sus at times, but try to keep it on the even keel. We like balance around here.
I love that expression sus, because like 6 months ago, no one was using it.
Yeah.
That one came out of nowhere when it was Among Us. That's just, wow. All right. So back, this is the Gamerpreneur podcast. So I do need your gaming cred. When did you first start playing video games?
I don't know the name of it, but I would believe around like first game I ever played, probably around 10, 11. I had two older stepbrothers, would have been probably GoldenEye on Nintendo 64 or like Mario Kart. They also had an Atari and a Sega Dreamcast. So way back when there was no online play and it was just your friends and my brothers just ultimately trying to beat each other, in which they were way older and better than me, so I would lose every time.
I love it. That's how I treated my little brother. All right. Other than FIFA Mobile, what else do you play today, if anything?
Typically I play COD Mobile and Brawl Stars. FIFA Mobile's kind of dead and gone at this point. It was just kind of my entry. On PC, really depends. I've started getting into Valorant now that I've got my PC back and fixed. I'll be getting into some other games as well, but I mean, typically I don't really have too much time to play. I watch more, like I'll watch CDL or a bit of the leagues that we play in across mobile. But if I'm if I'm gonna go and play a game, it would typically be Call of Duty Mobile or Brawl Stars.
Okay. Now, seems to be the hardest question I ask gamers. If you had to pick one game, that's your all-time favorite, which one is it?
It's a hard choice between Halo 2 or Halo 3, but it's definitely by far and away between the two. If we're talking about on an esports level, Halo 3. On the early level of like got me intrigued, Halo 2.
All right. I love it. Now let's get over to the preneur part. You have a team, and I don't think you've mentioned your team's name yet.
I did. Aphelion Esports.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so we've been an organization for a year and 7 months ish now, from August 10th, 2019 until now.
Okay. And what is it you focus on with your team?
We have a pretty broad focus in general. We've had quite good luck in having some connections and consulting from those who are well more experienced and much brighter than we are. So initially, the focus was to operate as more of a team, running esports teams with a lower focus on content creation. We've shifted much more to be a multi-capacity. So really kind of what was described to me is there's three main types of organizations in the esports realm. Like there's subsequent types, but the three majors for like an organization of our type would be sports team, media company, holding company. So, you have sports team, pretty straightforward, running operating teams, picking them up, making trades, acquisitions, etc. Media company, creating our own content, running social medias, picking up content creators, developing them, creating shows, podcasts, the whole nine yards. And then typically like the upper echelons of sports team, when you have like a holding company, for example, like CDL, OWL, LCS, when you're franchising a team, or for us opening up subsequent companies to expand our operations. So that's kind of the three benchmarks that we continuously try to hit and are continuing to work to make sure that we check all three boxes at all times.
Okay, wonderful. And what is your role with the team?
So I am founder and CEO. So general day-to-day operations, direction, stuff like today, like we were talking about just before this, when there's typically any issues or handling things with our pro teams, keeping things organized at an executive level with all of our other upper staff, helping develop systems, recruiting, kind of a wide focus. One thing that we've kind of preach to our own people and that I talk about with everyone is if you want to be in this industry, it's not like finance or the housing market or typical kind of bread and butter businesses where like you have this job, you just go to your job every day, you do this, I'm coming into the office, I'm going to do this today, like I'm handling distribution for this company, or with esports and especially running an organization, typically I'll have an idea of what I'm doing on the day to day, and maybe 50% of what like I pre-plan, like this is what's going to happen today, will go as I anticipated. The other half is just like things happening, having to move and shake and adjust your day depending on what's going on and be where you're needed and do what's needed.
Controlled chaos. Gotta love it. All right. Now, Mac, what was it like coming into kind of founding this team? Was it different from what you've done before? I know you kind of gave us your background already, but to actually build a team has to be a little different than what you've done in the past.
Yeah, I mean, for one, it's much larger scale. So, like anything being scaled with scale, at a smaller scale, things can be much more simple and you think you have a firm grasp on it. And then as you expand it, it's kind of like anything, it exposes cracks in your ideas or your planning or your systems. So I had built systems, programs, teams, like staff teams and whatnot at organizations before, but to scale, I would say, in the beginning, we really didn't have any idea. Like there's a lot of people who will tell you like, coming into this that, they just knew what they were doing, or, like just had a direction and just everything just went straight forward. I would say for us, we really didn't have any kind of clue in the beginning. It was just like, this seems interesting and this seems like something that would be good for the community and we can do well. And I think as a benefit for us, we made a lot of the initial mistakes in like not like having a plan moving forward with it and not having backup plans or safety nets in place for when something doesn't work. How do you make up for it? And luckily, we made a lot of those mistakes in the beginning and we're able to learn and put systems in place before we really started to grow to the level that we're at now. So it made for handling the chaotic nature of the industry. It made it much easier for us. And so at this point, there's never, a day or a situation that's just going to be perfect or anything that just goes exactly to plan. So having that familiarity with kind of like the Sherlock Holmes improvise, adapt, overcome, being comfortable with that is something that I don't think most people are just like ready for until you have to do it. And then you just do it and do it and do it until it's a habit and you're comfortable with it.
Wonderful. Okay. Now, part of the purpose of my show is to try to give advice to my audience. Maybe there's somebody out there who's kind of in the boat you were in before you got started, thinking they want to start a team like this. What advice do you have for them? What pitfalls should they be watching out for?
So I've actually been asked this a number of times, and I've actually asked this question to some folks that are much further along in similar types, running some sort of company within this industry. The first bit of advice that I ever got, and I was honestly a little upset when I got it the first time, but the first thing that I was ever told is, well, what advice do you have for starting an organization like this? Was don't. Like, it typically is going to be, it seems a lot different than it's actually going to be. So not to dissuade anybody from ever starting an organization, but the first things I would say you absolutely need to know is that you need to be comfortable with failure. You're going to fail a lot. You're going to fail regularly. And a lot of times it's tough. Secondarily, you're going to deal with within this industry a lot of toxicity or poor business practice or things of that nature. So being able to not be reactionary and get into tiffs with people and to be maintain your professionalism every day is incredibly important. And the third thing is I absolutely would not recommend building your own business within esports unless you are willing to pour exorbitant amounts of time and money into something and hit walls on a regular basis and then have to just pick yourself back up and then get up running again and then hit another wall and then pick yourself back and then just continuously do that over and over and over. If you're comfortable with all of those things, then I guess this might be the industry for you.
I'll admit that honestly sounds like most entrepreneurship. Just always running into walls.
It typically is. In this industry, it's one where, like in a lot of other businesses, there's those who have really done it before you. Like you can go to business school or, take a lot of classes on, like you want to become a realtor or, a speculator on currency or anything. Like there's tons of places that you can really learn those things. Like, yeah, you're going to face the same issues. In this industry, it's not really like there's like, even if I spelled out exactly how we did everything, if you went to try and do the exact same even steps, this industry moves so fast that it would be entirely different starting right now to starting 6 months or 12 months or whatever from now, because things are evolving so quickly. So it's definitely, there's a lot of parallels. But also you got to remember, in this industry, as opposed to most other businesses, this business is typically revolving around folks that are under 20 or under 18. So you're not dealing with like adults and their purchasing habits like you would in stock trading or, housing or, any of those things. You're dealing with young people and, for the most part here, as in the business back end, it's obviously much different, but like the industry itself revolves around young people. And similar to sports, which also does as well, there's typically a lot more discipline in typical sports because you're playing that sport from like a kid. Like when you're very young, you're playing it, you're going out, you have to go out and do the same thing repetitiously, like kick a ball at a goal or constantly just be outside, just throwing the football day after day after day. And so that discipline forces you to be more particular and like you don't want to waste all the time you put in gaming. It still has a bit to go to really get to that point.
Okay, fantastic. Let's talk about you a little more personally if we can, Mac. What makes you good at what you do? Like every business has somebody at the top who leads that organization. What makes you special? What unique skills do you have or talents?
It's a difficult question to answer about oneself. I would say what prepared me for this was the recruiting field of speaking with people on a regular basis. I've had a lot of run-ins with people in this industry where the somebody gets burned and it's like the same in other businesses. It's just business is the answer for that. And it's my parallel, especially coming from recruiting, is it's not just business because it's a business of people. Like it's a business of personalities, of relationships, of how you conduct yourself. Like a lot of this industry, which I'm sure you're quite familiar with, your resume is part your experience and part what people know, say, like your, for lack of a better word, like your clout or, your reputation within the industry. So when you're dealing with all of that, if you don't have a reputation for being able to handle things strongly, for being approachable, for being respectable, for conducting yourself well, for being able to speak with people and converse respectfully, especially when a lot of times tempers flare and there's just a lot of tension within this industry at times. So I would say kind of diplomacy, I would say, and people skills is my asset, and I would say is a key asset within this industry overall.
Okay, wonderful. Now, you said your organization is about a year and a half old or so?
Yeah, a year and a half, a year and 7 months, somewhere between the 6 and 7 months now on that.
Okay. So Mac, I'd like you to go back in time with me about a year and 7 months, and you get to talk to younger Mac, little Mac back then, who's bright-eyed, bushy tail, looking forward to this whole thing. You're going to be able to tell him everything good and bad that happens. But there's one thing he has to know moving forward in order to make the business bigger, badder, faster. What do you tell him?
What I would definitely say is it's kind of like what my parents used to tell me, as when I was young, if you hang around with the same friends every single day, you're eventually going to clash with each other. Just like, like during COVID, you're around your family every day. You love your family, but eventually you get to that point where you're tired of them. Like, okay, I've had enough. You go over there and I'll go over here. We don't, like, let's just have 24 hours away because I've seen too much of you. So I guess my advice would be to not focus as much on like starting and catering to friends within building a business. You need to have people around you and make decisions on who is going to perform, who is going to be the most functional, who is going to show up, even if they don't have as good of skills as somebody else, somebody who's going to work to grind on there, and not necessarily say, okay, well, I can trust you, so let me just, let's, come here and take this position or do this or do that, focus a little more carefully on the staffing, because ultimately when you're building a brand, every single member and person is some part, larger, smaller, minuscule, whatever of it. So catering more towards skills and perseverance and motivation than who would be one of the things I think would have made life a lot easier for us in the beginning.
All right, that's wonderful advice. Now, even more personal. See, Mac, I believe that we learn the most in our life from our failures, not necessarily our successes. Because when you succeed, you may not know what happened. But when you fail, you got to take a look at it. You got to move past it in order to succeed the next time you try. So I'd like to ask you, what do you consider your biggest failure in life? And what did you learn from it?
As a young person, I ended up on a bit of the wrong path in life, and ended up having some trouble with the law, unfortunately, and was able to sort my life out. But I would definitely say the biggest thing for myself and for a lot of young people is when you're young, it's easy to feel like there's no future, especially in this day and age with COVID, there's no future, woe is the world, all is dark, nothing will ever change, with relationships or with those things around you. And definitely by the time that you reach adulthood and you step more out into the world, you realize that that nothing is preset and you're realistically a little fish in a big pond. And so realistically, I would say trying to make decisions as if what the rest of your life will be. Ultimately, arrogance was a problem for myself as a young person, just being highly arrogant. I knew better. I knew my decisions were the right decisions because they were mine, not trusting other people. And it's difficult as a young person to not feel like, well, you don't know me, you're some adult, you're old, how could you know what my life is like? And it's like, well, as like the same thing was when I was a camp counselor. I used to give my camp counselors a ton of trouble. And then eventually I became a camp counselor and had some of those campers myself. And then one of my counselors came back to me and said, see, I told you. And I was like, yeah, now I see, I get it.
I love it. All right. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, on the flip side, what is something you're working to improve on yourself today?
Personally, I really enjoy learning new things, absorbing information, studying different things. It's one of the things that I really enjoy about this industry because it's progressing so quickly. It's one of those industries where you either progress with it or you fall behind. So again, that same kind of thing, like, continuing to learn, to expand my horizons, continue to absorb knowledge within the industry, continuing to collaborate with folks who especially know more. I forget the exact quote of it, but there's an old quote where the best way to learn is to have smarter people around you. So having folks around who are better, stronger, faster, smarter, pushes you to be better. So continuing to connect with people who are better versed, better experienced, have achieved more, and being able to see what they did, and ultimately, again, that same thing as you're saying, catch realistically what mistakes did you make. So if I know those same things that as I'm growing and I'm developing within this industry that were speed bumps for you, it's something that I can prepare for and look out for so that I don't have to take those steps and suffer the same issues.
Wonderful. Okay. Mac, this has been a fantastic interview. Thank you so much. How do people find you? How do they reach out to you? Where are you at on social media? All that, please.
So for myself, pretty much all of my social media are at MacSauceOP, MacSauceOP. Twitter is my main platform. My Discord, if anybody wanted to message me, is in the bio of my Twitter. And for the organization, on every handle or on every platform but Twitter, we're at Aphelion Esports, APHEILON ESPORTS. Unfortunately, on Twitter, because of an old account, we are APH Esports, waiting for Twitter to handle our trademark claim, but they are slow. So that's your best ways to get a hold of me.
All right, wonderful. Now, as we wrap this up, do you have any final thoughts you want to share, or anything I didn't ask you think we still need to cover?
I would say as final closing thoughts, a lot of this industry, especially for those that are on the business side, there's a lot of preconceived notions on what esports is or how it works and all of that. I really look forward to, as time goes on, that a lot of them will be shed so people can see that there's so much more, such as the platform wars between people saying PC, console, mobile, one is better, one is worse, PC master race or what, all of that stuff. At the end of the day, the industry is growing very quickly. It's become, in the last year, I think it was $170 billion overall gaming made. This is a real chance for a career path. This is a real business. This is a extremely budding industry. And if you want to get in, now is the time.
So true. Mac, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic interview. I genuinely appreciate you coming on with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for the time and thank you for the invitation as well.
Absolutely. And for everybody else, I'm going to remind you all, don't be just a gamer, be a gamerpreneur.